Captain Sarah Chun stood on the observation deck of the space station, watching the silver ships approach Earth. They moved like dancers in the black void, their hulls catching the light of the sun and throwing it back in patterns that hurt to look at directly. She had seen many ships in her 20 years with the United Earth Defense Force, but nothing like these. "Ma'am, they're requesting permission to dock," Lieutenant Morrison said from behind her. His voice carried the same mix of fear and wonder that everyone felt when they first saw the alien vessels. Sarah turned away from the window. The bridge crew watched her, waiting for orders. These were good people, trained soldiers who had fought in the resource wars and lived through the worst humanity had to offer. But now they looked like children seeing magic for the first time. "Grant permission," she said, "and send word to Earth Command. Tell them our visitors have arrived." 3 months had passed since the first message came from deep space. It arrived in perfect English, transmitted on frequencies that Earth had used for decades. The voice that spoke was gentle, like a teacher explaining something important to a student. "People of Earth," the message had said, "we are the Zephyrians. We come in peace with news that will change your world. There's a great danger approaching your system. We wish to help you prepare." The message had caused panic at first. World leaders met in emergency sessions. Military forces went on high alert. But as more messages came, the panic turned to hope. The Zephyrians spoke of protection, of technology that could solve Earth's problems, of safety from threats that moved between the stars. Now they were here, the airlock sealed with a soft hiss. Sarah waited in the docking bay with her security team trying to look calm. The door opened and the first alien stepped through. The Zephyrian was tall, nearly 7 feet, with skin that seemed to glow from within. Its features were almost human, but stretched and refined, like a sculpture made by someone who remembered faces from a dream. When it spoke, its voice carried the same gentle tone from the transmissions. "Captain Chun," it said, somehow knowing her name. "I am Keeper Alphen. We are grateful for your welcome." "The pleasure is ours," Sarah replied, proud that her voice stayed steady. "Earth is honored by your visit." More Zephyrians emerged from the ship. They moved with fluid grace, their long limbs carrying them across the deck like they were swimming through air. Each wore robes that shifted color in the light, and their large eyes held depths that seemed older than worlds. "You have questions," Keeper Alphen said. It was not a question but a statement of fact. "This is natural. We will answer what we can." The meeting room on the station had been prepared for weeks. Representatives from every major nation on Earth, joined by video link, their faces filling screens around the walls. Sarah took her seat at the head of the table, with Keeper Alphen across from her. "You spoke of a threat," Sarah began. "Something coming toward our system." Keeper Alphen's expression grew sad. "Yes, they are called the Devourers. We have fought them for longer than your species has existed. They consume everything in their path. Stars, planets, life itself. They leave nothing but empty space behind." A murmur went through the room. On the screens, world leaders leaned forward in their chairs. President Martinez of the Americas Union was the first to speak. "How long do we have?" "By our calculations, they will reach this sector in 8 of your years," Keeper Alphen replied. "Perhaps 10 if we are fortunate, but we must begin preparations now." "What kind of preparations?" asked Premier Chun from the Asian Coalition. Instead of answering with words, Keeper Alphen gestured to another Zephyrian, who activated a device that filled the air above the table with moving images. Sarah gasped despite herself. The images showed space battles beyond anything in Earth's worst nightmares. Dark shapes the size of moons tore through fleets of ships. Planets cracked like eggs, their surfaces burning away to reveal hollow cores. Stars flickered and died, consumed by things that fed on light itself. The Devourers cannot be reasoned with. Keeper Elfin explained as the horrible images played. They exist only to consume. We have seen 1,000 worlds fall to them. But we have also learned how to fight them. The images changed. Now they showed gleaming defensive platforms around planets, energy shields that turned away the dark shapes, weapons that carved through devourer ships like knives through paper. We offer this technology to Earth, Keeper Elfin said. Our protection, our knowledge, our friendship. We ask for little in return. What do you ask for? Sarah said, though she was still staring at the weapons in the display. Safe passage through your space. Permission to build monitoring stations in your system. The right to guide your development so that you might survive what is coming. The room fell silent. Sarah could hear her own heartbeat, could feel the weight of the decision pressing down on everyone present. On the screens, world leaders whispered. To advisors. These monitoring stations, Premier Chen said carefully. What would they monitor? Devourer activity primarily, but also your technological development. The devourers are drawn to certain types of energy signatures. We must ensure that your growth does not attract them before you are ready to fight. President Martinez leaned forward. And if we refuse your help? Keeper Elfin's large eyes seemed to dim. Then Earth will face the devourers alone. Your weapons cannot harm them. Your shields cannot stop them. Within days of their arrival, this world will be empty stone circling a dead star. Sarah felt cold despite the warmth of the room. She had seen war, had watched good people die fighting over water and rare metals, but this was different. This was the end of everything. What technologies are you offering? She asked. The images changed again. Now they showed clean energy sources that could power entire continents, medical devices that could cure any disease, ships that could cross between stars in weeks instead of centuries. All of this and more, Keeper Elfin said. We have guided other species through this trial. The Karathi now command fleets that span 12 systems. The Volani have colonies in 3 galaxies. All were once as vulnerable as Earth is now. And they survived? Sarah asked. They thrived. Under our protection, they became more than they ever imagined possible. The vote took 3 hours. Representatives argued, demanded guarantees, asked for details about technologies they could barely understand. But in the end, the choice was simple. Accept the Zephyrians' help, or watch humanity die. The final vote was unanimous. Earth accepts your offer, President Martinez announced. We place ourselves under your protection. Keeper Elfin stood, towering over the table. Then let us begin. The first monitoring station will be built in orbit above your moon. Construction ships are already on their way. Sarah blinked. Already on their way? We hoped you would choose wisely, Keeper Elfin said with what might have been a smile. Time is precious, and the devourers do not wait. Within weeks, the skies above Earth filled with Zephyrian ships. The monitoring station grew like a silver flower above the moon. Its surfaces gleaming with technologies that human scientists could barely comprehend. Energy patterns flowed through its structure, visible even from Earth's surface. The first gifts arrived soon after. Medical pods that could heal injuries in hours instead of months. Power cells that generated more energy than nuclear reactors, without any waste. Communication devices that could send messages across star systems. Instantly. Sarah stood in her new office on the completed monitoring station, looking down at Earth through the massive windows. The planet looked peaceful from here, blue and white and perfect. No sign of the wars that had scarred its surface. No hint of the threat approaching from the dark between stars. Magnificent, is it not? Keeper Elfin said, joining her at the window. It's beautiful, Sarah agreed. And you're certain this station can protect it? Absolutely. The devourers will find only death here when they arrive. Sarah nodded, feeling a weight lift from her shoulders. For the first time in years, Maybe the first time in her life, she felt truly safe. Humanity had found protectors, guardians who asked for so little in exchange for so much. She never thought to ask what the Zephyrians were protecting Earth from. Commander Marcus Torres walked through the streets of New Geneva Colony, watching the children play under the silver dome that protected their world. 5 years had passed since the Zephyrians came to Earth, and humanity had spread to dozens of new worlds. Each colony was a miracle of technology and safety, surrounded by the gleaming shields that kept out the dangers of space. Marcus felt uneasy as he watched the children. They had never seen an open sky, never felt rain that did not fall from artificial clouds. They knew only the gentle light that filtered through Zephyrian barriers, only the safe paths between buildings that the monitoring systems approved. Commander Torres, a voice called behind him. Dr. James Walsh approached, carrying a tablet and wearing the worried expression that had become common among the colony's scientists. "We need to talk." Marcus nodded and followed the doctor to a quiet cafe near the colony's center. They sat at a table in the corner, speaking in low voices while families enjoyed their evening meals around them. "It's about the research project," Dr. Walsh began. "The one studying faster-than-light communication. The Zephyrians shut it down this morning. On what grounds?" Marcus asked, though he already suspected the answer. "Safety concerns. They said the energy signatures might attract our attention." Dr. Walsh leaned closer. "But Marcus, we were barely producing any energy at all. The signals were weaker than a child's toy radio." Marcus had heard similar stories from other colonies, research projects canceled for safety reasons, scientists reassigned to other work, always with gentle explanations about protecting humanity from the terrible threat that moved between the stars. "Where is Dr. Peterson now?" Marcus asked. Peterson had been leading the communication research. "That's what worries me. They said he was transferred to a better facility on Europa Station, but I checked with my contacts there. No one named Peterson has arrived." A chill ran down Marcus's spine. Dr. Peterson was the third scientist to disappear in the past year. Each time, the Zephyrians provided reasonable explanations. Better opportunities, important research projects, family emergencies. But none of the scientists ever sent messages to their friends or colleagues. "Have you mentioned this to anyone else?" Marcus asked. Dr. Walsh shook his head. "I wanted to talk to you first. Your colonial security. If anyone can look into this properly, it's you." Marcus nodded, but inside he felt the familiar frustration that had been growing for months. He was head of colonial security, but his authority meant little when the Zephyrians made decisions. They controlled the monitoring stations, the defensive shields, the communication networks. They always asked politely before making changes, but somehow their suggestions always became orders. That night, Marcus sat in his office reviewing security reports from across human space. The pattern was always the same. Peaceful colonies, happy populations, grateful leaders. But underneath the official reports, he found small details that bothered him. Travel requests denied for trips beyond the monitored zones. Independent research projects mysteriously losing funding. Trade routes that somehow always passed through Zephyrian checkpoints. It was as if humanity was slowly being guided into a smaller and smaller box. His computer chimed with an incoming message. Marcus opened it expecting routine colony business, but instead found something that made his blood freeze. The message was from Dr. Elena Vasquez on Earth. She had been studying Zephyrian biology since first contact, one of the few humans allowed close access to their alien protectors. But this message was not sent through official channels. It came through an old emergency frequency that most people had forgotten existed. "Marcus," the message read, "I need to show you something, but not through normal communications. Meet me at the old research station on Luna in 3 days. Come alone and tell no one. If I'm right about what I found, we're all in terrible danger." Marcus stared at the message for a long time. Dr. Vasquez was not given to panic or wild theories. If she was using emergency channels and secret meetings, she had found something important. 3 days later, Marcus told his staff he was taking a routine inspection trip to Luna Base. The journey took 12 hours, and he spent most of it wondering what could have frightened Elena so badly. Luna Base was one of the first human settlements in space, built long before the Zephyrians arrived. It had been abandoned when the newer, safer colonies became available. Now it sat empty on the moon's surface, its old domes dark against the stars. Marcus found Elena waiting in the base's main laboratory. She looked tired and worried, her hair messy as if she had been running her hands through it. Around her, old computer screens displayed information that made Marcus's head spin. "Thank God you came," she said, rushing to meet him. "I was starting to think they had intercepted my message. What have you found?" Marcus asked. Elena led him to a table covered with papers and data tablets. It started with routine medical scans of our Zephyrian guests. "I've been studying their biology for years, trying to understand how their healing technology works." She activated a holographic display that showed the internal structure of a Zephyrian. Marcus had never seen anything like it before. The being's organs were arranged in patterns that seemed almost mechanical, connected by networks that looked more like circuits than blood vessels. "This is what bothers me," Elena continued, pointing to areas highlighted in red. "These sections aren't biological at all. They're synthetic, artificial. The Zephyrians aren't purely organic beings. They're part machine." Marcus studied the display. "Maybe that's just how their species evolved. Some kind of biological technology integration. That's what I thought at first. But then I found this." Elena pulled up another image, this one showing cellular samples under extreme magnification. "These are Zephyrian cells, but look at the energy patterns." The cells glowed with a soft light that pulsed in regular patterns. Marcus watched the rhythm, noting how it seemed to match some kind of signal. "They're transmitting," Elena explained. "Every cell in their bodies is broadcasting something. And more importantly, they're receiving. The Zephyrians aren't just individual beings. They're connected to something larger." "Connected to what?" Elena pulled up a star chart that showed human space and the surrounding regions. Red lines connected various points, forming a web that stretched across dozens of star systems. "I've been analyzing the monitoring stations they've built around our colonies," she said. "The energy patterns match what I found in the Zephyrian cells. The stations aren't just watching for devourers. They're part of a communication network that links every Zephyrian in space." Marcus felt a cold understanding creeping into his mind. "You're saying they're not individuals at all?" "I'm saying they might be parts of a single intelligence. A collective mind that spans the galaxy." Elena's voice dropped to a whisper. "And that's not the worst part." She activated another display, this one showing historical data from Earth's deep space missions. Marcus recognized some of the charts from his military training, records of humanity's first attempts to reach other star systems. "Remember the lost colony ships?" Elena asked. "The ones that left Earth 50 years ago and were never heard from again." Marcus nodded. Every school child learned about the brave volunteers who had tried to establish humanity's first interstellar colonies. They had been heroes, pioneers who disappeared into the dark between stars. "I've been comparing the destinations of those ships with the worlds where Zephyrians have now helped us build colonies," Elena continued. "Marcus, they're the same worlds, every single one." The laboratory fell silent, except for the hum of old life support systems. Marcus stared at the star chart, seeing the terrible pattern Elena had discovered. "You're saying our colonies aren't the first human settlements on those worlds," he said slowly. "I'm saying the Zephyrians have been watching us for decades. Maybe longer. They knew exactly where we would try to expand because they've seen us do it before." Marcus thought about the missing scientists, the canceled research projects, the gentle restrictions that kept humanity safe in their protected spaces. What happened to the original colonists? Alina's face went pale. I don't know. But I've found traces of human DNA in soil samples from 3 different colony worlds. Old DNA from people who died decades ago. The implications hit Marcus like a physical blow. The lost colonies had not failed due to accident or misfortune. Something had happened to them, something that left only traces in the ground. There's more, Elena said, her voice barely audible. Yesterday, the monitoring station detected something at the edge of our solar system. A probe, they said. Definitely Devourer technology. I heard about that. The Zephyrians destroyed it. They did, but I managed to scan the wreckage before it was completely vaporized. Elena pulled up one final image. The probe's technology isn't alien at all, it's human. Old human design, but definitely from Earth. Marcus stared at the technical readouts, recognizing design elements from Earth's early space program. How? Is that possible? I don't think it's possible, Elena replied. Unless the Devourers aren't what the Zephyrians claim they are. Before Marcus could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the old base. Emergency lights flashed red, and automated voices announced incoming ships. They found us, Elena whispered, frantically gathering her research data. Dr. Elena Vesquez crouched in the abandoned mining tunnels beneath Colony 7, her hands shaking as she connected wires to an old data storage device. 2 weeks had passed since her escape from Luna Base, and she had been hiding and forgotten. Corners of human space, ever since Commander Marcus Torres crawled through the narrow passage behind her, carrying equipment they had stolen from 3 different colonies. Around them, the tunnel walls showed signs of ancient excavation, cuts made by tools that predated Zephyrian technology. Are you sure this will work? Marcus whispered. Elena nodded toward the device. It's completely isolated from any Zephyrian networks, pre-contact human technology, powered by chemical batteries. If the data is here, we'll find it. The device hummed to life, its screen casting green light on their faces. Elena had spent days searching through abandoned mining records, looking for evidence of the original human colonies that had supposedly never existed. There, she said, pointing at the screen. Mining survey from 2087. This entire asteroid belt was mapped by the colony ship Endeavor. Marcus leaned closer, reading the faded text on the display. According to Zephyrian records, no human ship ever reached this system. But here's the proof. 68 years ago, 300 colonists from Earth established mining operations throughout this belt. They built habitats, processing stations, communication arrays. Elena scrolled through the data. And then, suddenly, all records stopped. The last entry in the logs was dated 15 years after the colony's establishment. It spoke of strange ships appearing at the edge of the system, silver vessels that came offering help against an approaching threat. The same story, Marcus said grimly. Every time. Over the past 2 weeks they had found similar records in 4 different systems. Hidden archives, forgotten data caches, emergency beacons that had broadcast into empty space for decades. Each told the same tale. Human colonies, thriving for years or decades, suddenly going silent after contact with silver ships. Elena pulled up a new file. This one containing soil analysis from Colony 7's main settlement. I've been comparing trace elements from all the colony worlds. Look at this. The screen showed chemical signatures that made Marcus's stomach turn. Calcium and phosphorus in unusual concentrations. Trace metals that matched human bone composition. Organic compounds that could only come from decomposed human tissue. They're not just missing, Elena said quietly. They're dead, all of them, buried in the ground where they once lived. Marcus stared at the data, trying to understand the full scope of what they had discovered. How many colonies? I've found evidence of 17 so far. Maybe more. The Zephyrians have been harvesting human settlements for at least 70 years. The word harvesting hung in the air between them like a curse. Elena pulled up another file, this one showing energy readings from various colony worlds. I've been studying the monitoring stations, she continued. The energy they collect isn't just for communication or defense. It's being drained from the colonies themselves, from the people living there. The screen displayed complex graphs showing energy flows between the stations and the population centers below. Marcus could see the pattern clearly now. The Zephyrians weren't protecting human colonies. They were slowly feeding on them. It's like a farm, he said, the horrible understanding dawning on him. They keep us safe and comfortable while they drain our energy. Elena nodded. And when a colony stops producing enough energy, or when the population starts asking too many questions, they're eliminated, replaced with fresh colonists who don't know the truth. Marcus thought about all the scientists who had disappeared, all the research projects that had been canceled for safety reasons. They're making sure we never develop technology that might threaten their control. Worse than that, they're keeping us at exactly the right level of development. Advanced enough to produce the energy they need, but not advanced enough to break free. Elena activated another display, this one showing star charts with movement patterns marked in red. I've been tracking Zephyrian ship movements over the past 5 years. They follow the same routes, visit the same systems, always arriving just before or after major events in human space. Marcus studied the patterns. They're coordinating everything. Every colony placement, every technological advancement, every contact with Earth. It's all been planned. And the Devourers, Elena added, bringing up the analysis of the probe that had been destroyed. I've had time to study the wreckage more carefully. The technology isn't just human. It's specifically from the lost colony ships. She zoomed in on component designs that Marcus recognized from historical archives. Engine parts from the ship Endeavor, communication arrays from the vessel New Hope, life support systems from a dozen different colony missions. The Devourers are using human technology because they are human, Elena said. Or at least they were human. The survivors from colonies that fought back against Zephyrian control. Marcus felt his world shifting around him. Everything humanity believed about their place in the galaxy was wrong. The Zephyrians told us the Devourers consume everything in their path. They do. They're trying to free other colonies from Zephyrian control. From the Zephyrians' perspective, that is consuming their resources. Elena's voice carried a bitter edge. The real threat to the Zephyrians isn't some alien enemy. It's free humans who refuse to stay in their cage. A new piece of data appeared on the screen, and Elena's face went pale. This is recent intelligence from the edge of human space. There's a large Devourer fleet approaching. The Zephyrians are mobilizing their defense platforms. Marcus read the tactical analysis. The approaching fleet was massive, larger than anything the Zephyrians had faced before. How many ships? 300 vessels. All using modified human technology. Elena scrolled through the ship classifications. These aren't random pirates or scavengers. This is an organized liberation fleet. The implications hit Marcus like a physical blow. Somewhere in the galaxy, free humans had built a fleet capable of challenging Zephyrian control. They were coming to liberate Earth and the colonies, just as they had probably tried to liberate previous settlements. We have to warn people, Marcus sighed. Every human in the galaxy needs to know the truth. Elena looked at him sadly. How? The Zephyrians control all communication networks. They monitor every transmission, every movement, every conversation. Anyone who tries to spread this information will disappear just like the scientists. Marcus stood up in the narrow tunnel, his head nearly touching the rocky ceiling. Then we find another way. There have to be others who suspect the truth. Resistance cells, underground networks, people who've noticed the same patterns we have. Even if there are, how do we reach them without the Zephyrians detecting us? Marcus smiled grimly. The same way our ancestors did before the aliens arrived. We use technology they don't understand because they think it's too primitive to matter. Over the next several days, they began building a network using equipment that predated Zephyrian arrival. Old radio transmitters hidden in mining equipment. Coded messages sent through entertainment broadcasts. Meeting locations arranged through seemingly random supply deliveries. To their surprise, they found that resistance cells already existed throughout human space. Miners who had noticed strange energy readings. Engineers who had questioned why certain research was forbidden. Military officers who had grown uncomfortable with humanity's dependence on alien protection. Dr. Sarah Chun wants to meet, Marcus reported after returning from a supply run to a nearby station. She's been gathering information about the monitoring stations. Apparently, she's not the only one. Elena looked up from the communication device she was repairing. The Captain Chun from First Contact? The same one. She's been having doubts for years but couldn't prove anything. Our data confirms what she's been suspecting. That night, they met Chun in the cargo bay of a transport ship that was officially carrying mining supplies to the outer colonies. The former captain looked older than her years, worn down by the weight of terrible knowledge. "I've been watching the energy patterns from the monitoring stations," Chun reported. "The amount of power they're drawing from each colony has been increasing every year. At current rates, some settlements will start experiencing critical shortages." "Within months, shortages of what?" Marcus asked. "Life force itself. The energy that keeps people alive. The Zephyrians are literally feeding on human vitality." Chun's voice was barely above a whisper. "I've seen the medical reports. Populations on older colonies are showing signs of premature aging, decreased fertility, reduced immune function. Symptoms that match chronic energy depletion." Elena felt sick. "They're not just farming us for technology or labor. They're feeding on our life energy directly. And when a colony is drained to the point where it's no longer useful, they eliminate it and start fresh somewhere else," Chun added. "I estimate that Earth itself has maybe 2 years before the energy drain becomes irreversible." Marcus thought about his own children back on Earth, playing under artificial skies and breathing recycled air. The approaching Devourer fleet. "Ah, they really coming to help?" Chun nodded. "I've been analyzing their transmission patterns." "There." Marcus Torres crouched behind a power generator in the maintenance tunnels of New Geneva Colony, watching the seconds tick down on his wrist display. 4 days remained until the Devourer fleet reached human space, and the Resistance was moving into position across dozens of worlds. "Team 7, report status," he whispered into his hidden communicator. "Position secured," came the reply from Sarah Chun on Earth. "Monitoring station access confirmed." "We're ready to upload the data packet," Marcus smiled grimly. The Resistance had grown far beyond what they had imagined possible. In just 6 days, word had spread through hidden networks to every human colony. Engineers who had wondered about energy readings. Doctors who had noticed declining health in older settlements. Soldiers who had questioned why human military development had stagnated. "Team 12, what's your status?" Marcus continued. "Infiltration complete," reported Dr. Elena Vasquez from Colony Prime. "I'm inside the main communication hub. The Zephyrians suspect nothing. The plan was dangerous and complex. Each resistance cell had spent days positioning themselves near critical Zephyrian infrastructure. When the alien defense network linked together to face the approaching fleet, the humans would strike simultaneously across the galaxy. Marcus checked his equipment one final time. Hidden in his maintenance uniform were devices that looked like simple repair tools, but had been carefully modified. A power scanner that could actually transmit data. a welding torch that was really a high-energy transmitter, a diagnostic tablet that contained terabytes of evidence about Zephyrian crimes. "Movement detected," whispered Jenny Walsh, Elena's former colleague, who was now serving as lookout. "Two Zephyrians approaching your section." Marcus froze as footsteps echoed through the tunnel. The aliens moved with their characteristic fluid grace, but now their presence filled him with anger rather than awe. He pressed himself against the wall, knowing that if they detected him, the entire operation would fail. "Energy fluctuations in Grid 7, one Zephyrian said to the other, its voice carrying that same gentle tone that had once seemed so reassuring. "The humans may be attempting unauthorized modifications again. Seal the section," the second alien replied. "We cannot allow them to disrupt the feeding cycles. The approaching threat requires us to maintain maximum energy reserves." Marcus listened to their conversation with growing horror. Even now, when they thought no humans could hear them, the Zephyrians spoke openly about harvesting energy from the colonies. They truly saw humans as nothing more than livestock. The aliens passed by his hiding spot without detecting him. Marcus waited until their footsteps faded before continuing toward his target. The main power junction was just ahead, a massive chamber where energy from the entire colony flowed toward the monitoring station above Dot. As he worked to access the junction's control systems, Marcus thought about all the people sleeping peacefully in their homes above. Families who believed they were safe under Zephyrian protection. Children who had never known freedom because they had never known they were slaves. "All teams prepare for final synchronization," came Sarah Chun's voice through his earpiece. "Enemy fleet detected at the edge of the system. Zephyrian defense. Protocols activating in 3 minutes." Marcus's hands moved quickly over the control panel, uploading the virus that would turn the colony's own communication systems against their alien masters. Around the galaxy, dozens of other resistance members were doing the same thing. "Elena, are you in position?" he asked. "Ready," came her reply from Colony Prime. "The Zephyrians are linking all monitoring stations together. We'll have total network access in 90 seconds. Marcus felt sweat dripping down his face despite the cool air in the tunnels. Everything depended on perfect timing. Too early, and the Zephyrians would detect the intrusion and shut down their networks. Too late, and the aliens would be too focused on the battle to notice the resistance broadcasts. 60 seconds, Chun announced. "Upload packages ready for transmission." Marcus looked at his tablet, where years of evidence waited to be revealed to humanity. DNA analysis proving that human colonies had existed long before Zephyrian contact. Energy readings showing the systematic draining of life force from settlements. Technical specifications revealing that Devourer technology was actually modified human equipment. 30 seconds. "All teams confirm ready status. Team 7 ready. Team 12 ready. Team 19 ready." The confirmations came from across human space. Earth, Luna Base, Colony Prime, New Geneva, Mining Station 7, Agricultural World Beta, humans hidden in maintenance tunnels, communication centers, power plants, and monitoring stations. 15 seconds. Network integration at maximum. All stations linked. Marcus held his breath as the final seconds counted down. Everything they had worked for, everything humanity's future depended on, would be decided in the next few minutes. Execute, execute, execute. Marcus pressed the activation button on his tablet. Around the galaxy, dozens of other resistance members did the same. Instantly, the evidence of Zephyrian crimes began flooding through the alien communication networks. The effect was immediate and dramatic. On every human colony, on every monitoring station, on every communication device that had ever been touched by Zephyrian technology, the truth began to appear. Video records of the original colonies that had been eliminated. Audio recordings of Zephyrians discussing humans as food sources. Technical analysis showing how the monitoring stations drained life energy from populated areas. Proof that the Devourers were actually human liberation forces. Upload successful. Elena's voice crackled through the communicator. Data reaching all colonies simultaneously. But even as Marcus felt a moment of triumph, alarms began blaring throughout the colony. Emergency lights flashed red, and automated voices announced security breaches. "They know," he said into his communicator. "All teams, execute Phase 2. Disable monitoring stations now." Marcus pulled out his modified welding torch and aimed it at the power junction's main control unit. The device sent focused energy pulses that overloaded the alien systems, causing sparks to fly and lights to flicker throughout the colony. "Power grid destabilizing," reported Jenny Walsh. "The monitoring station is losing connection to the colony." "Same. Here," came voices from other teams. "Colony Prime Station going dark. Earth monitoring systems failing. Agricultural World Beta disconnected from network." But the Zephyrians were fighting back. Through his earpiece, Marcus could hear reports of alien security forces moving to stop the resistance. Some teams were discovered and forced to run. Others found their access codes had been changed. "Team 15 compromised," came a urgent transmission. "Zephyrians moving to restore Mining Station 7. We can't hold them off much longer." Marcus worked frantically to complete the sabotage of New Geneva's power systems. If even one monitoring station remained active, the Zephyrians could use it to silence the truth broadcasts and maintain their control. "Elena, what's your status?" He called. "Still transmitting," she replied, her voice strained. "But they're trying to break down the door to the communication hub. I've got maybe 2 minutes before they reach me." Through the colony's communication systems, Marcus could hear the chaos spreading as humans discovered the truth about their protectors. Angry voices demanded answers from colonial governors. Scientists who had been silenced for years began broadcasting their own evidence. Military units started questioning orders from Zephyrian advisors. "Marcus," Jenny's voice was urgent. "Zephyrian ships incoming. They're moving to retake the colony by force." Marcus looked through a small window in the tunnel wall and saw silver shapes descending from the artificial sky. But these ships looked different from the graceful vessels that had first arrived at Earth. Their hulls bristled with weapons, and their movements carried a predatory menace. "All teams be advised." Sarah Chun's voice cut through the chaos. "Zephyrian ships are moving to all major colonies. They're abandoning the pretense of protection. This is now open warfare." Marcus finished his sabotage and headed toward the tunnel's emergency exit. Around him, the colony's power grid sparked and failed as human engineers followed the resistance instructions and shut down the energy feeds to the monitoring station. "Elena, get out of there," he called. "The data transmission is complete. Don't let them capture you." "Still broadcasting," came her reply. "The truth needs to reach every human in the galaxy. I'm not leaving until the job is done." As Marcus emerged from the tunnels, he could see that New Geneva colony had transformed. Humans poured out of their homes, many carrying weapons they had hidden for years. The artificial sky flickered and failed as the monitoring station lost power, revealing real stars for the first time in 5 years. "This is Sarah Chun broadcasting to all human colonies," came a transmission that reached every working communication device. "You have seen the evidence. You know the truth. The Zephyrians are not our protectors. They are parasites who have been feeding on us for decades." Marcus joined a group of colonists who were surrounding a disabled Zephyrian transport. The alien crew emerged with their hands raised, but their gentle expressions had been replaced by something cold and predatory. "You have made a terrible mistake," one of the aliens said. "Without our protection, you will all die when the Devourers arrive." Captain Sarah Chun stood on the bridge of the Resistance command ship, watching the space battle unfold on screens around her. 3 days had passed since the uprising began, and the fight for human freedom was reaching its climax. Zephyrian fleet moving to intercept the liberation ships, reported Lieutenant Morrison, the same officer who had served with her during first contact 7 years ago. They're using our own colonies as shields. Sarah watched the tactical display with growing anger. The Zephyrians had positioned their ships directly above major population centers, knowing that the Free Human Navy would not risk harming innocent civilians. It was a coward strategy, typical of a species that had spent millennia feeding on others rather than fighting fairly. "This is Admiral Reynolds," came a transmission from the lead liberation ship. "All colonial resistance forces, prepare for coordinated strike. We will not abandon our people to these parasites." Sarah activated her communicator. "All resistance cells, this is Captain Chun. Execute Plan Omega. It's time to show these aliens what humans do when they're truly threatened." Across the galaxy, the response was immediate. On every human world, people who had been living as slaves for years suddenly revealed the weapons they had been hiding and the plans they had been making. Marcus Torres led a team of engineers as they stormed the Zephyrian Command Center on New Geneva Colony. The aliens inside looked shocked as humans burst through doors that were supposed to be impenetrable. Their elegant faces showed confusion and fear as they realized their slaves had become warriors. "Impossible," one Zephyrian said as Marcus's team disabled their control systems. "You cannot operate this technology. You lack the neural interfaces required." Marcus smiled as he connected a device of his own design to the alien computer. "That's your first mistake. You think technology requires your specific biology. But humans don't adapt to technology. We make technology adapt to us." The device began translating the alien systems into formats that human minds could understand. Within minutes, Marcus and his team had complete control of the colony's defenses. "Second mistake," Marcus continued as he turned the colony's weapons toward the Zephyrian ships above. "You thought keeping us at a lower tech level would make us helpless. But humans have been fighting with primitive weapons since we lived in caves. We know how to improvise." All across the colony, humans demonstrated the truth of his words. Farmers used their agricultural equipment as siege weapons. Miners turned their excavation tools into artillery. Even children contributed by jamming. Zephyrian communications with modified toys and gaming devices. Dr. Elena Vasquez coordinated the technical assault from Colony Prime. She had spent days analyzing Zephyrian technology, looking for weaknesses that their parasitic nature would create. "All technical teams," she broadcast to resistance cells throughout human space, "target the neural network connections. The Zephyrians share a collective consciousness, which means they also share collective vulnerabilities." Her analysis had revealed the aliens' greatest weakness. Because they thought as one mind spread across many bodies, disrupting their network connections caused system-wide confusion. A single broken link could affect dozens of ships. "Uploading virus now," Elena announced as she injected corrupted data into the Zephyrian command network. "This should give them something to think about." The effect was immediate. Zephyrian ships began moving erratically as their collective consciousness struggled with the false information Elena had fed into their systems. Some turned their weapons on each other. Others simply stopped moving as their crews became paralyzed by conflicting mental commands. But the aliens adapted quickly. Keeper Althan, the same Zephyrian who had first contacted humanity, appeared on screens throughout human space. His gentle expression had been replaced by something cold and predatory. "Enough," he said, his voice carrying none of its former warmth. "You have chosen to reject our protection. Very well. We will show you what happens to species that oppose us." The Zephyrian ships began charging weapons that Sarah had never seen before. Energy signatures unlike anything in their previous technology. Devices that seemed designed not to destroy, but to drain. All ships evasive maneuvers. Admiral Reynolds commanded from the Liberation Fleet. They're targeting our life support systems. Sarah watched in horror as the first energy beam struck a human transport. Instead of exploding, the ship simply went dark. Its lights faded, its engines stopped, and emergency broadcasts indicated that the crew was rapidly losing consciousness. There, draining the life energy directly from our ships, Alina reported from her analysis station. It's the same technology they've been using on the colonies, but concentrated into weapons. The battle seemed hopeless. The Zephyrians had revealed technology that could kill humans without even damaging their ships. The Liberation Fleet was falling back, unable to fight against weapons that attacked life itself. But then something extraordinary happened. On Colony 7, a group of children led by a 12-year-old girl named Amy Chun began broadcasting a signal that none of the adults understood. What are they doing? Marcus asked as he watched the children working with modified gaming equipment. I think they're networking, Alina replied, studying the energy patterns the children were creating. They're linking their minds together the same way the Zephyrians do, but using human creativity instead of parasitic control. The children's network began spreading. Teenagers on Earth picked up the signal and joined in. Young adults on the mining stations added their mental energy. Soon, humans across the galaxy were connected in a web of shared consciousness that was completely different from anything the Zephyrians had ever encountered. Where the alien collective was rigid and controlling, the human network was chaotic and creative. Ideas flowed freely between connected minds. Solutions to problems appeared from unexpected sources. The collective human imagination became a weapon that no parasite could understand or control. I've got it, announced Dr. Walsh. From Mining Station 7, the Zephyrians can only drain energy that flows in their specific patterns. But human creativity doesn't follow patterns. It's completely random and unpredictable. The revelation spread through the human network instantly. Engineers began modifying their ships to run on creative energy instead of standard power. Scientists developed new weapons based on pure human imagination rather than alien technology. Artists created defensive shields powered by the beauty of their own minds. Captain Sarah Chun felt the change as it swept through her ship. The bridge lights glowed brighter, but with a warm human warmth rather than cold alien efficiency. The engines hummed with a sound that reminded her of children laughing and music playing. All ships, she broadcast to the Liberation Fleet, switch to human pattern energy sources. Let's show these parasites what free minds can accomplish. The effect on the battle was immediate and decisive. Zephyrian drain weapons that had been devastating human ships suddenly became useless. The aliens found themselves facing opponents powered by an energy source they could not understand or steal. More importantly, the human network began turning the Zephyrians' own collective consciousness against them. Thousands of human minds, working together, created ideas so strange and wonderful that the rigid alien intelligence could not process them. Impossible, Keeper Alphen said as his ship's systems began failing. You cannot do this. Your species lacks the unity required for collective consciousness. You're right, Sarah replied as she watched Zephyrian ships throughout the system beginning to shut down. We don't have unity. We have something much better. We have diversity working together by choice rather than force. The human network was not a single mind controlling many bodies. It was millions of individual minds, choosing to share their unique perspectives and abilities. Where one human saw a problem, another saw an opportunity. Where one reached the limit of their knowledge, another began with completely different expertise. Admiral Reynolds broadcast from the Liberation Fleet as Zephyrian resistance collapsed throughout human space. This is Admiral Catherine Reynolds. To all human colonies, The parasites are retreating. But more importantly, we are no longer fighting alone. We are fighting as one people choosing to be free. Marcus Torres stood in the wreckage of the Zephyrian Command Center on New Geneva Colony, watching the last alien ships flee toward deep space. Around him, humans were already beginning to rebuild their world, but this time they would build it according to their own designs. "Elena," he called to his colleague, "what happens now?" "The Zephyrians will try to find other species to control." Elena smiled as she watched children playing in the sunlight that now streamed through the colony's transparent dome. "Let them try. We'll be waiting for them." She activated a communicator that reached every human in the galaxy. "This is Dr. Elena Vasquez to all free humans. We have learned something important today. We are not alone in the galaxy, and we never have to be slaves again. We are forming the Galactic Liberation Alliance. Any species that wants freedom will find friends in humanity." The response was immediate. Signals began arriving from distant star systems where other species had been living under Zephyrian control. The Karothi, the Villani, and dozens of other races that had been mentioned as success stories were actually crying out.